Hi everyone and welcome to this video. So what we are going to do is basically the second part of the feature that we were working on in the last one, which is to show the customer details after the selection. And in this video what we are going to do is to create some tests. Basically we want to ensure that the customer details are actually displayed after selecting the customer. And when opening an order editor, and there is already an existing order with an existing customer association, then also the details are displayed. And potentially also when we remove the customer, then we see the customer search once again. So let's see how we can achieve that. We have already our order edit customer search test here, and I think we can basically copy this test here, because it is actually what we want, except for the then part, because we do not want to concentrate here on the fact that the customer is assigned to the order, but we actually want to basically just focus on the fact that once this is selected, then the customer details are displayed. So let me just rephrase that here. So as we said, so this seems to be the same, and we can keep this one here, and then we do this entity suggestion field value selection, and then afterwards we do not want to check on the order edit get edit entity, but actually what we can do is to say form interactions is visible, and then we pass in the customer field. Or we could actually do it the other way around. So if we go to order edit and take a look at the IDs, then we will find actually that it is the customer display field that we would like to see. So now we have to create this method, and here we have a component ID, and actually we already have a couple of methods here on the top which actually create dedicated components as their corresponding type, but we do not yet have a generic method, and let's do that. So I will just create this get component and refactor that here, because this is what we then can also use. And here there's one method which is called isVisible, and let's start with that and see what is going to happen. So what we want to see is that it is true. So let's see if this already works. Okay, so the test seems to be fine. And this is actually a little bit misleading. So if we remove this one here and basically do not perform the selection, then if we run that again, then I would assume that this actually fails, because the operation didn't actually happen, and in fact the test is still green. And the reason for that is our implementation. So if we go to this isVisible method, here we are using the method isVisible, and this actually just checks on the direct attribute of the corresponding component. And if we see or take a look here, then by default we didn't specify any information about the visibility here, and therefore it actually will just basically just say it is visible. And since in the controller we also don't directly interact with this particular component, it's actually always visible. That being said, in the UI it's not actually present, because the wrapper component here, which is this H box, or it's actually this customer details box, is not visible. So we see that here, and then also once we select it, in the controller, we actually see that we put this to true, and therefore it is then visible. So how can we now achieve that? And there is another method which is called isVisibleRecursive, which is actually, you know, doing this thing. So if we go here to the to the Java docs or to the interface, actually we will see returns true if the component and all its parent components are visible. So this is actually what we want to achieve in case we check on a particular subcomponent here. We could, of course, also check on this wrapper box and say, you know, if this is visible or not. And this way we would also be able to see it. But at the end of the day, we only, you know, care about the fact that this display field is there, not that, you know, some H box on top of that is actually visible. So now it's not actually working. So let's now activate this customer field selection for Mr. Miyagi, and then we will see if this is then working. All right. So with that, we now have a valid test case. And perhaps what we should also do is to see if we can have you know, information about what is rendered in this component. So let's see how we can do that. So I think what we could do, so what we could have is get, perhaps there's a method like get component value, and then it will actually return as a string. And here we say get component ID, and then okay, so there is no method yet. Then we will probably need, you know, to come up with a label. So let's create a dedicated field. I think we can, yeah, this would be a label field. And then what we could do is to say label field of component ID, and then get raw value, because this will actually give us the exact the string that is rendered in this label. So if we do that, then we should be able to, you know, compare that now to a particular string. And here we could, you know, so for now we could do it like this and see that this actually fails because of this reason. So first let's get rid of our compiler error and run that again. Okay, so it was actually Mr. Miyagi. So this is exactly what I wanted to see, if, you know, there's now only a mismatch in the content. And since this is now, you know, correctly showing us the different value, then let's actually fix that here. And now we have a running test. And I was just thinking, perhaps actually let's now switch this one here. Okay, and with that, I think we can, or we have already finished our first test case. And this leads us then to the second one, which is about when we open the editor with an already existing order and a customer association. So I think this is a little bit different to what we have done before. So let's take a look. I think first of all we need existing order with associated customer, and when yeah, I think this one should stay as it is. So there's one difference here, is mainly that we have here called this sub method here, or this private helper method open order editor, and this just creates an order for creation. And now what we need is actually that we create a dedicated order even before we open that screen, and this is something that we have not done until now. So let me just get our test data component here for creating an order. It would be save orders.default data customer. So this would give us our order. And then we also, we could just, save a random customer, and then, or perhaps we actually do it that we, since we already have all the customers here, we could also just associate it to so this should actually be Mr. Miyagi here. And okay, so now we have our order, and this means we now need to have a new method, which we will just create on the fly here. And so the way how to do that is basically we want to achieve the same, but I think we should call it like this, and then the third parameter would be the order. And so for that we actually need to create a method in this screen interactions class, and so this would be the screen class, and then it's actually easier if I just copy it from here. I think this will make more sense. And then we have the entity. And this is basically the same. So I think the only difference is here that we now pass in this entity, and therefore we also don't need this one anymore. Which actually means that we can then here also do open editor for editing, and then we will just pass in the screen class, the entity class, and the new entity. And then, this is everything that is needed. Okay, so let's run all of those again and see if they still work. Right now we didn't do anything yet. Wait, actually we did. So we created the order and saved it, and then we opened the order with the saved the order editor with a saved order, and then we actually interacted with the suggestion field, which shouldn't actually be possible. So let's get rid of that. So first of all, we cannot search for it. So probably like this, and then we just say this will actually be the when part, because we do not. The actual invocation is actually opening the editor. And then what we will see is that the customer display field is present, and the label values should actually also be present. Okay, so this seems to work as well. And I think with that we can here also search for this customer field and say that it is not visible anymore. And with that we also say that we do not, are able to interact with this particular component. As you have seen in the integration test, it is actually possible to still interact with those components, although they are not rendered in the UI. This is because we are using this web integration test layer. Okay, but this means we now have, the existing test case as well. And then potentially there's a third one. Let's see how we can pull this one off. Ensure customer search is active after removing the customer. So this means, for example, what we could do is, to copy this test and start with an existing selection. And so when, we clear customer selection, then the customer search is displayed. I think this would be fine. And then here it's actually a little bit different, because now it's once again here precondition. And the when part actually now comes because of our button interaction. So let's see if we have already anything in here. Oops. Yeah, so there is a method which is currently not used. Okay. Yeah, I mean, what we could do is, just create a method called click button or something. Once again, it's not really related to this forms interaction actually. So this would be the component ID for our button. So let's take a look on which one this actually would be. So this is this clear customer button. And when this happens, then afterwards this, here we can actually, copy to this one and just switch those. So this should be true, since now the display field is not visible anymore. And afterwards we have this customer field, which is visible once again. So here we can actually, get the button and then perform the click operation. And I think this should already do the trick. Okay, so I think we can switch those here once again to see that actually, the test then fails. Or I could have also, not performed the click and then, just see if this is actually not true anymore. Okay, so our test is now failing. This means we have implemented the correct logic. Sorry. And yeah, I think the last remaining one is that we afterwards see that the association has already been removed as well. So I think this is the last one here. So we can say has, yeah, I think it should be like this. Okay, so with that, we have now implemented all of our test cases that we wanted to achieve. I think this is the third one here. And with that, we actually finished our whole feature. So thanks for watching, and then see you in the next video.